So, Donald Trump. A name that, depending on your political leanings, either inspires fervent devotion or the sudden urge to check if your passport is still valid. Recently, or rather during his time in the White House, he went on a bit of a verbal rampage. One of his speeches, let's call it a disaster piece theater performance, was particularly memorable. Not for its coherence, mind you, oh no. It was memorable for the sheer audacity of its claims. He stood there basking in the warm glow of his own self-regard, and essentially told the world he single-handedly averted Armageddon. Yes, you heard that right. Trump the nuclear peacemaker, his big claim, he, Donald J. Trump, with his unique blend of, let's call it diplomacy, stopped a full-blown nuclear war between India and Pakistan. He didn't just help, it. According to him, things were very, very bad. Tensions were at a fever pitch, and then, like a superhero in a slightly ill-fitting suit, he swooped in. He apparently got on the phone, probably between tweets, and told them to knock it off, and just like that, peace bloomed. Or so the story goes in the magical land of Mar-a-Lago. He regaled audiences with tales of his crucial interventions, his firm words, his unparalleled negotiating genius. It was a narrative designed to make him look like a global statesman, a Nobel Peace Prize contender, perhaps even the star of his own action movie. Or, more accurately, let's see if anyone else remembers it happening that way. Now, over in India, the reaction to Trump's heroic narrative was, shall we say, a little different. It was less hooray for President Trump, and more, wait what? Who is this guy talking about? Indian officials, when they weren't busy trying to suppress a collective eye roll, offered a version of events that was remarkably Trump-free. They stated quite clearly and repeatedly that the de-escalation between India and Pakistan was primarily the result of direct talks. You know, between India and Pakistan. Groundbreaking, I know, no third-party saviors were mentioned or apparently needed. The Indian government's position was pretty straightforward. They acknowledged the tensions, of course, but they emphasized that the path to calming things down was paved by their own diplomats and military leaders talking to their Pakistani counterparts. India's external affairs minister at the time, S. Jaishankar, was quite firm on this. He basically said thanks, but no thanks to any notion of external mediation being the key. He also reiterated India's commitment to handling its own security, especially concerning terrorism from Pakistan, through its own means. It was a polite diplomatic way of saying, we've got this. While Trump was busy auditioning for the role of global peacemaker back home, another drama was unfolding. This one starred then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the American economy. And let me tell you, Pelosi was not handing out any awards for Trump's performance on this stage. She stepped up to the microphone, not to praise Caesar, but to bury his economic policies. She was, to put it mildly, deeply concerned. She saw Trump's economic direction not as a path to prosperity, but as a highway to a self-inflicted disaster. Ouch! Pelosi didn't just whisper these concerns in a back room. Oh no. She went public, holding a press conference at a small produce business in San Francisco. A produce business. The symbolism was as ripe as a California avocado. Section 4. The terrific twister small businesses swept away. Let's talk about those tariffs, shall we? Because Nancy Pelosi certainly did. She pointed her finger directly at Trump's tariffs as a prime villain in this economic horror show, especially for the little guys, America's small businesses. These weren't just abstract taxes on foreign goods. For many small companies, they were a sudden, unwelcome gut punch to their bottom line. Imagine running a small bakery, and suddenly the price of imported vanilla or chocolate skyrockets because of a trade war you had absolutely nothing to do with. That's the kind of headache Trump was dishing out. The problem, as Pelosi and many economists explained, is that small businesses often operate on razor-thin margins. They don't have massive cash reserves or armies of lawyers to navigate complex new trade rules. So, when hit with these increased costs for raw materials or components, they face a horrible choice. Do they absorb the costs and watch their profits vanish? Section 5. Economic roller coaster, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy decade. Beyond the direct hit to businesses, Nancy Pelosi wasn't shy about pointing out another delightful side effect of Trump's economic joyride: rising costs for everyone. Yes, you, me, your Aunt Mildred who just wants to buy her yarn without taking out a second mortgage. When businesses, big or small, are forced to pay more for imported goods thanks to tariffs, guess who often ends up footing the bill? That's right, the consumer. Suddenly that new washing machine, those sneakers, even some groceries start creeping up in price. It's like a stealth tax, slowly but surely squeezing household budgets. And then, there was the sheer, unadulterated chaos of it all. The economic uncertainty. Trump's trade policies weren't exactly rolled out with the precision of a Swiss watch. It was more like a toddler playing with a very large, very unpredictable hammer. One day tariffs on China, the next, maybe Mexico or Europe? Who knew? This won't he approach to global trade made it incredibly difficult for businesses to make long-term plans, to invest in new equipment or to hire more workers. Why would you, when the entire economic landscape could shift with the next presidential brainwave? Section 6, Recession Roulette, Trump bets the farm, your farm. Now if rising costs and crippling uncertainty weren't enough to make you reach for the antacids, Nancy Pelosi had another even scarier prediction. She warned that Trump's economic shenanigans weren't just causing a bit of turbulence, they were actively steering the US economy towards a full-blown recession. Yes, a recession. That delightful period where businesses contract, jobs disappear, and everyone suddenly becomes an expert in couponing. This wasn't just idle fear-mongering. It was a serious accusation that the president's policies were fundamentally unsound and potentially catastrophic. Pelosi even invoked the ghost of Republican past, bringing up Ronald Reagan. She pointed out that Reagan, a figure many conservatives practically worship, had himself warned against the perils of protectionism. That's the fancy word for using tariffs and trade barriers to supposedly shield domestic industries. By drawing this comparison, Pelosi was trying to show that her concerns weren't just partisan potshots. She was suggesting that even by the standards of a revered Republican president, Trump's approach was a dangerous deviation from sensible economic principles. Section 7, The Alternative Facts Presidency, a legacy of what now? So, what are we left with when we look back at the whirlwind of Trump's pronouncements and policies? Well, for one, a distinct sense of whiplash. Take his claim about preventing a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. He presented it as an undeniable triumph, a testament to his singular genius. Yet, as we saw, the other key players in that particular drama had a rather different script. This pattern of bold, often self-aggrandizing statements clashing with, shall we say, alternative versions of reality became a hallmark of his time in office. It left many people wondering which version of events to believe. Then there's the economy. Trump painted himself as the ultimate dealmaker, the architect of unprecedented American prosperity. But figures like Nancy Pelosi offered a starkly contrasting view. They pointed to the tariffs, the trade wars, the rising costs, and the looming threat of recession as evidence of a deeply flawed, even destructive, economic agenda. The greatest economy ever often felt very different depending on whether you were listening to a Trump rally or talking to a small business owner struggling with new import duties. The disconnect was, to put it mildly, significant. The word disaster became a recurring motif.